You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing listeners. How are you? Thanks for joining. Thanks for being with me. How are you feeling? How are you feeling in this moment? I know I do this a lot. I feel like you take the time to find this episode, to push play. And I imagine that most of you are busy. I imagine most of you are running around like crazy. I imagine a lot of you are trying to find some sense of understanding, peace, calm, reassurance, support, whatever that is. But you have taken some time to push play. As grateful as I am for your support in listening to this podcast, sharing it with others, I am more interested in providing an opportunity for those of you who are listening to look at yourselves, to connect back to you, because I know what that's like to feel so disconnected because of the kind of divorce that each of you are experiencing or have had. One of the things that I think sometimes gets forgotten in our healing journey in the midst of seeking out knowledge and more information is the actual turning towards the self. So I ask that question very intentionally, not one of those just passing the halls or the grocery aisle or the church pew of how are you, not really caring about the answer. I care about the answer, and I want each of you to take a moment to check in with yourself, to check in and to see what's going on with you in this moment. The more opportunities that we can take to check in with ourselves, to connect with yourself, you are accessing that healing. Okay, so take a moment. How are you feeling? Really and truly. And then when you take that deep breath and ask yourself that question, find where that feeling is showing up in your body. Where are you noticing that emotion show up for you just right now? If you have to hit pause because maybe tears start to come up when you take that moment to see you, to hear you, and to recognize yourself, then go ahead and hit pause. It's more important for you to listen to this part of you than to me. I cannot stress enough how critical it is along this journey to stay connected to our bodies, to our hearts, and to our mind. This is how you have an empowered divorce. Today, I'm answering a question that actually gets brought up a lot. And I think every single one of you can probably say you have thought about this question, you have asked yourself this question, or you've had other people ask you this question. It's funny because at first I thought this is a silly episode to do. Then I was like, actually, this is a very valid question. More than anything, I really wanted to give this question that a lot of you are asking yourselves some space because I think it's an important question. Oftentimes it gets thrown around as a dumb question or why are you making such a big deal out of this question? Either way, I have some thoughts, of course, to share with you that I hope will help you to answer this question for yourself. Because like many of these kinds of questions, I don't think anybody has the answer. I don't think anybody should have the answer but you. But my thoughts today are hopefully to help you find what your answer is. When you are wondering what to do with your wedding ring, what to do with your wedding dress, what to do with all of the memory, all of the memorabilia, the items, the shared items, pictures, all the things. What the F do I do with all of these things? I will never forget, like it is seared in I know where I was in my apartment when I took that ring off. Interestingly enough, I took that off before the divorce was final. I remember my reason why I took it off, how significant that was to me, how symbolic that was for me at the time. It was interesting because my husband at the time, because we weren't officially divorced, but we were separated. I remember we were at a football game for my son and he pointed it out and threw it in my face, right? It was one of those like, look at what you've done. we're not even divorced yet. See, you've quit. See, you've given up. See, right? It was another way for him to try to make everything my fault, the demise of everything my fault. Of course, he was not privy to my reasons for taking it off at the time before the divorce was actually official. But I remember the feeling of that ring missing from my finger. And maybe some of you were thrilled to take it off. Maybe some of you felt like you were now naked when you removed that. I remember buying a cheap Walmart ring at one point during my man hater phase when I wasn't wearing my wedding ring anymore, but I also didn't want to look single. So I bought this massively huge fake Walmart ring to put on my finger to try and ward off the opposite sex because I was like, get away, don't even look at me, taken. That didn't last long, but I did end up settling on a ring that my grandfather had made for me when I was a little girl, and I wore that for a few years. I mean, it might sound weird to some of you, or maybe you will nod in agreement, but wearing my ring on that finger for 18 plus years, taking it off did feel like a part of my hand was missing. And sometimes I'd feel like the ring was even on my hand, but it wasn't. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was really, really odd kind of adjustment for sure when that has been on there for so long. Maybe some of you can see the tan line or an indentation. Just seeing that there is causing some grief when you look at it. Then there's the dress, like whether you fit into it or not, it's sentimental for some of you, or some it can be sentimental in what you do with it. But looking at it can maybe bring feelings of grief, a lot of memories. Maybe you absolutely loved your wedding dress. It was beautiful and you loved how you felt in it. Maybe you have a fun memory around purchasing it. Maybe you, like me, got married in the 90s when the sequences and puffy sleeves era were at its finest. And you wonder what the hell you were thinking when you bought that dress. But you might want to keep it. You might want to burn it. There is no wrong or right. What I think is worth validating is the symbolism that you may feel when you look at it and what you want to do with it. I remember looking at it hanging in my closet and wishing that I could tell that young girl who wore it so many years ago. I wish I could tell her so many things. I wish I could tell that young bride that she was truly beautiful inside and out and worthy of love and honor and integrity and fidelity and faithfulness. That no matter what happened to her in her life, she was going to be okay because she knows how to love. She knows how to be kind and she knows how to do hard things. So what about all the memorabilia, the pictures, the things that perhaps you saved over the years? Maybe you saved them for a reason. They meant something special to you. You held onto cards that were filled with the I love yous and the special words only lovers know between themselves, inside jokes that no one would know about shared in a card or a sentiment. You keep them because you wanted to remember these sweet moments, pictures, albums that tell the story of your love, your friendship, or so you thought. Looking at them now only makes you wonder how you didn't see the real story, the reality. Maybe you see even more of the missing pieces of the puzzle when you look at these things. I remember looking at pictures, having this cognitive dissonance experience where I'd look at the picture and I would remember the memory, the feeling that I had at that time, believing the reality that I thought was real. And now knowing the real reality of what he was doing at the time, all of a sudden that picture takes on a whole new meaning, a whole new feeling. So what do you do with that? What do you do with that when you're in this space of, well, that felt good at the time, but now it's ruined? But then your kids are part of the story too. And what do you do with all of that? A few things to consider are the personal significance these items hold and the memories that you have with them. When you look through all of these different items, these things, these pictures, what is the emotional connection to them? What is the memory? What is the emotional connection that are associated with what you're looking at, with what you're holding, with what you are wondering what to do? Is there a future relevance with this item? Meaning, does this item have placement in your future moving forward? Do these things that you are considering keeping align with your current goals, and the kind of environment that you want to create now moving forward. Beyond the emotional considerations, when you look at these things, do these items have a practical use right now? Do they bring happiness? Do they serve a purpose that might be worth keeping, maybe at least for now? When I was finally able to grab a few of my personal belongings and items after about a year or so from leaving, I remember struggling to know whether to keep a few things that were practical and that we needed. But the emotional connection also felt really hard to hold on to that item. We needed a table, but the table came with memories. The benches came with memories, and those memories came with emotions. The next thing to consider is the impact. What is the impact that you will experience if you keep an item or you give away an item? What impact will that have on your healing? Holding on to certain items can sometimes impede that healing process, believe it or not, especially if they do serve as constant reminders of pain and loss. It might be beneficial to let go of some things that hinder your moving forward and consider whether it's time to make space for a new experience and a memory. Letting go of some past memorabilia can symbolize openness to a new chapter in your life, to new experiences. One small thing to share as an example of this was my family pictures, right? The frames that had our old family together in, and looking at that, like, ouch, right? This hurt looking at that family pictures, all of those old family portraits and memories. This one hurt because it wasn't the family I knew anymore. It wasn't the man that I knew anymore. So putting that on my wall, it was not helping my healing. But it did lead me to getting new family pictures taken with me and my 4 babies that took the place on that wall. New memories were to be made in this next chapter of my life. Asking yourself the question, what do I do with the ring and the dress and the pictures and the memorabilia? Deciding what to do with these marriage related items after divorce can be a very deeply personal and emotionally charged process. I think some people's advice is to wait a year to decide these things. I mean, there is some validity to that in terms of the grief aspect, like research on grief and adjustment after significant life change or loss, like each of you have experienced. It does show that it can take a considerable amount of time to process the complex emotions. A lot of you are going through complex grief. It can take some time to reach that new equilibrium. And studies do suggest that any major phase of grief and trying to adapt to a new life, to new reality, it can take a significant amount of time. I mean, just looking at the neuroscience of the brain around this, like, think of decision, like, here we are trying to make a decision. Well, what happens to your brain under stress, that prefrontal cortex where decisions are made? It goes offline. Your prefrontal cortex is offline under this extreme amount of stress that many of you have lived in for far longer than intended. So when you're making big decisions from this space, it's going to more often than not be more of a reactive decision. In a reactive decision, you're not thinking long-term impacts around those decisions. I look at it like there are grief decisions versus higher self-regulated decisions. And look, sometimes there's going to be decisions in grief. That's okay. I think when it comes to bigger decisions, we want to try and make those when we are more accessed to self-regulation, to that window of tolerance, so that we can make that more from a higher self space. I guess where I really want to just start with this question of, what do I do with these items? What do I do with my ring, my dress, and all the memorabilia that are surrounding me, or that are in boxes, or that are in my attic or in the basement? What do I do with all of this? How about sitting with the idea that you don't have to do anything? You don't have to do anything. And if you just took a deep breath or a sigh of relief, then maybe you're not ready to do something. Maybe you think you should be ready, or maybe you're being asked by other people around you, what are you going to do with the ring? oh, you should da 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 da. Or, well, you aren't going to throw those out, are you? Well, you might regret that, so maybe you should. Are you hearing that? If you're hearing this from others, this is why you're doing something. Stop. Just stop right now and take a breather. You don't have to do anything right now. I also just want to offer the idea that there is no right or wrong answer to any of these questions. What one person might do doesn't mean you have to. One woman's idea of how to move forward with the keepsakes and memories may not be what's right for you and your healing. I know one thing's for sure, doing anything from a comparative part of the brain usually leads to a disconnect from self and regret. It's so easy to get caught up in that, right? So easy to get caught up in wondering from other people what you should do in some of these decisions. Totally get that. I know someone who took the diamond from their ring and made it into another jewelry item. For me, I wanted nothing to do with any of that. She saw value, like monetary value behind that gorgeous diamond. So she wanted to make it into something else. Beautiful. When I looked at my ring, I only saw debt that he had lied about. No answer is right or wrong. Sometimes what you do with it can be subconsciously symbolizing something. What is that for you, perhaps? Pausing and asking yourself some of these questions before deciding can really bring up what is subconscious to that prefrontal cortex, and you might be able to have more clarity in your decision. For example, if you want to burn the dress, cough, cough. If you are one that wants to burn the dress, it might be symbolizing your desire to burn away the lies and the deception and the false reality. Or maybe you want to leave the dress in the attic and never look at it again. Perhaps subconsciously, you're avoiding something. Maybe a restoration of the ring perhaps represents renewal and individualism. Selling it can symbolize letting go of the past and reclaiming your independence with a new purchase of a new ring that you choose. Maybe storing it away can symbolize the unwillingness to let it go, unresolved feelings, and just needing time to process that. You might throw away items of memory, symbolizing perhaps a strong desire to break away from the past, start new, and just rid things that are triggering. Or maybe you're giving things to kids, just a way to maybe redistribute the items. This might feel safer than throwing it away or burning it. Maybe it's symbolizing something that you're not quite ready to finalize yet. It is so hard to sometimes do something with these things when they have meant something to you, when you have worked hard for these memories and experiences. It can put you in a cognitive dissonant space where you have that positive experience on one hand with this reality, and then now you have a new reality and you're experiencing something completely different with the same item. And grief is in the middle, leading you to the reality. It can be really hard to know what to do when you're in the middle with grief. So, a few things to consider and a couple questions to ask yourself when you are trying to make this decision. First, what memory is associated with this item? What are the memories? I think it's worth and part of the grief to name the memory that maybe you are grieving, name the loss of the memory. And then what's the emotion connected to it? What emotions do you feel when you see or touch these items? Pay attention to that. Let yourself go there. And ask yourself, what are you hoping to achieve by keeping it or altering it, refurbishing it, or letting it go or burning? What is the result that you're wanting from this action? I love asking myself this question. What would future me say about this choice to keep, alter, dispose, or refurbish? What would future me say? I think that's always just a good check-in. Is there a future relevance with this? Meaning, does this item have placement in your future moving forward? Do these things you want to keep align with your current goals and, again, the environment that you want to create moving forward? Beyond the emotional considerations when you're trying to make this decision, I think, again, is there some practical use for this? Does this bring you happiness today? Do they serve a purpose, maybe just today? I think one of the things that can get missed in making this decision as you go through these different items is taking time to grieve it, especially if you're going to get rid of it. I think that's something that I would consider taking pause and thinking about. I remember pulling out all of my bins with all of the pictures and taking, gosh, I think it was probably a solid month. Whenever I had time, I would pull it out, go through the pictures, and I'll just share my process. Again, not that it's right or wrong, just my process. And what I did find helpful with it was I did go through all of the pictures. First just started categorizing them. For me, organizing helps me feel a sense of control and it softens the hard emotions around grief. So I just started with categorizing things, especially whether it was cards, items, but pictures. I put all of the pictures that were just of him and me in a pile. I put all of the pictures that were with him and all of the kids or multiple kids in a pile. And then I went through each picture with one, like him and one of the kids in piles so that they each had their own pile of just them and their father or their father and me. I did that for a purpose. Again, organizing helped ease some of the intense pain because it helped me feel more of a sense of control and order. And that's how one part of me really likes to function sometimes. And once I could get it in, I guess, in those categories, for me, it felt a little less activating to take all of the kids' pictures in him and put those in their special memory bins that I kept for them. All of those pictures that they bring home when they're 5 and you're like, what the hell do I do with this? I just would always throw it in like a plastic tub. So I just put all of those pictures of them and their dad in their tub. Just dump it in there. And I was just like, okay, that's for them. That's their memory, their experience. I didn't feel like I could choose to get rid of that and make that choice for them. So that felt like a first step for me to do. The next step was to take all of the pictures that were of him and me, of him and me and our family. And I just put those in their own separate little tub. I just thought I'll let the kids sift and sort through those on their own. At one point, I did take pictures of them with my phone and upload them to a Google Doc. And that way the kids can have that Google Doc and do with what they want with that, utilizing technology a little bit there for me. The ones that took the most time to go through and definitely had the most grief attached were the pictures of just him and me in the different places, the different vacations, the different experiences. Going through those was extremely grieving, extremely emotional. I did wait a year to decide what I wanted to do with them. Me personally, I did throw a lot of them away, especially the ones that, like I mentioned earlier, just felt too painful, too triggering. And I knew that I did not want to have that memory anymore. It truly was just not something that I wanted to remember. Then there were pictures, memories, things that I wanted to own as my memory. I wanted to own as something that I worked really hard for, even though knowing what I know now, knowing what he was doing during that time that the picture was taken, I don't know what it was. There were just different pictures that I felt proud of. Like I felt proud of how I loved and how I showed up in that marriage and in that space and in that time. I wanted to own that. I wanted to keep that for me. So the ones that I chose to keep were more for me as validation to my memory that I created with my thoughts and my feelings and my actions during that time. So that was part of my sorting process. Then the wedding pictures that I took, again, I think I just put those, I just put those in with my kids can have those and do what they will with those memories, whether they want them or not. It was nothing that I wanted to keep or take with me into my future. There were items, there were cards, there were letters, notes. He's an artist and he would draw, create, make. Those things definitely felt too painful. And so I did have a ceremonial burning experience with a lot of those. That's another thing that I just want to offer is that whatever you choose to do with these, I would suggest making a symbolic experience around that. I know of women that have gathered together with other women with their box of items that they do want to burn. Again, their own individual symbolism to that. They got together with each other to not be alone in their grief around that, but also it was very healing for them to let go. I know one woman that burned and kept the ashes, very symbolic to a death of the marriage and this part of the marriage. I don't know how long she's kept that urn of ashes, but that's something that I thought was pretty cool because this is a death of a relationship, death of a marriage, death of something that you thought existed, that each of you found out tragically and dramatically and traumatically wasn't. However, you want to give reverence and sacredness and homage to what you do with these items, I can't see how it cannot be anything but your decision. Taking other people's thoughts, ideas to consideration, great. Maybe you got some ideas here that feel true and right for you. But just be clear with yourself around your emotional readiness. Right? Consider your emotional state when you make this decision. Consider the personal significance of the item and what it truly means to you. Does it bring more pain than joy? Consider your future self and the regrets that future you might have with what you choose to do with this item at this time. Consider a ritual, finding closure and creating a ritual ceremony to mark the letting go of some of these items, turning a potentially very painful experience into a moment of personal growth and healing. More than anything, just remember that the memories you cherish from your journey are uniquely yours. They are irreplaceable and resilient, just like you. Each of these items you hold, each memory that you recall is a testament to your commitment, to your love, to your integrity. No one can diminish the truth of your experience and the depth of your feelings. These memories are your creations, crafted from your emotions and thoughts, and they will always belong to you. You earned them. And so as you decide the fate of these physical items, know that you are not just handling artifacts, so to speak, of your past. You are honoring the narrative of your life in that relationship. Whether you choose to keep, transform, let go, or burn, you're asserting your right to move forward on your terms. This process isn't just about the objects. At least that's the message that I'm hoping you get from this episode. It's about acknowledging your past and choosing how you step into your future. I hope that you can hold your head high in how you showed up and trust the knowledge of whatever decision you make, that it comes from a place of strength and self-respect. You really are the author of your story and your future story. These decisions are your power, your renewal. They are a declaration of your enduring courage and wisdom. So no matter what path you choose from here, no matter what you choose to do with any of these items, your journey is valid, your experiences are valuable, and your memories are sacred. And you can choose to experience what you want with any of these items the way that you want, because you can. Take care, everybody. I know firsthand what it's like to feel stuck in your healing, even after making it through the hardest parts. You still might feel like getting a little extra support, need some tools, or just want to elevate your healing journey to that next level. That's exactly why I created my coaching membership, Believing in You. This membership is designed to give you that support, information, and enough face time with me to help you move forward. If you enjoy learning in a deeper, more interactive way, then this is perfect for you as well. Each week, I teach a lesson focused on real-life healing tools. For example, we've been diving into the 8 characteristics of the higher self, practicing, cultivating, and understanding them on that deeper level. And members are discovering so much about themselves through these exercises, even when they're avoiding them, because that avoidance is a message too. And it's been really eye-opening for so many. What's powerful about this group is that hearing other women share their experiences makes you feel less alone. But you also realize that your brain isn't the only one thinking the way it does. There's a real sense of relatability, and many members have these breakthrough moments, especially around that vulnerability. So many women realize just how deeply betrayal has impacted their ability to be vulnerable. that can feel really painful, but also it's really necessary to be able to be authentic and have that vulnerability when you want a healthy relationship moving forward. Not everyone can do one-on-one sessions with me, which is why I created this membership to make it accessible for more women to get the support that they need. If this resonates with you, head over to amiewoolsey.com. The afternoon group starts in October, and we do have a couple spots left in the evening group at the time that this will air. I would love to have you join and support you in your journey towards an empowered divorce. See you soon.